I'm a hustler, baby.
It's time for Hustle Her podcast. I'm your host, Deshae Keynes. Hustle Her is all about inspiring women through real life experiences that have helped to mold and develop not only me, but my guests into the entrepreneurs and leaders we are today. If you're an enterprising woman determined to succeed and looking for a bit of motivation, a bit of tough love, and some actionable takeaways to be the best you, girl, you are in the right place. My next guest has a passion for medical services on the island of Bermuda. She was determined to contribute to the quality of healthcare services and has recently moved back from Los Angeles to be Bermuda's first and only neuropsychologist. Please help me welcome Dr. Samantha O'Bannon. Hi, Sammy.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Are you nervous?
A little.
Why?
I don't know. I'm not really nervous, to be honest.
I was just going to say, I don't understand.
I don't know.
Full disclosure, Samantha is also my best friend in the entire world. So
yes,
this should be a really relaxed conversation. So you should not be nervous.
I'm not. If anything, I'm more just a little, I don't know. There's a lot of cameras.
We take podcasting seriously over here. Yeah. With LDS Multimedia. It's not a joke. We take it very, very seriously. All right. So let's jump right in. I know a lot of these answers, but my listeners don't. So we're going to start with just some quick rapid fires, and then we'll go into the meat of the interview.
Okay. Let's
do ready?
This.
All right. Do you remember the first album you ever bought? Oh. I actually don't know the answer to that.
I think it was NSYNC No Strings Attached. If it wasn't that, it was like Sammy, his I Like the Way album.
I like that one. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
It was one of those two.
Do you remember your first concert?
No. I don't even know that I've technically legitimately been to. Actually, the first legitimate concert was probably a couple years ago, and it was the Millennium Tour.
We're not even going to go there today.
In Miami.
Do you watch reality TV? If so, what's your favorite reality TV show?
Not anymore.
Why not?
Because I grew way too attached to the characters, and I would find that my mood would reflect what would happen in the episode. So I had to stop.
That's a fair point.
However, it used to be Love and Hip Hop.
Which one?
Atlanta.
Yeah, big facts.
Even though the original one was everything, but then I started like moving towards Atlanta because I was in Atlanta at the time.
New York hasn't been the same in years.
It hasn't.
Yeah. That Jim Jones, Chrissy, Yandy dynamic was unmatched.
Yeah.
For sure.
It was.
But so then what's your favorite show now?
I don't really watch TV because I don't really have time to watch TV. So I don't really have a favorite show because I don't really watch TV. If anything, I watch Miss Rachel on YouTube. Because of my daughter. That's my fave. Miss Rachel. She's great.
She gets down. I like Miss Rachel. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And Word Party. Excellent.
Jesus. All right. What's your love language?
These questions are off the chain. Okay. I apologize to everybody watching this. This is going to make me sound insane. All of these answers have made me sound insane. So far, I have no good self-care, no life. And I'm also
don't watch TV.
Insane because my love languages change depending on the mood that I'm in.
That's not one of the love languages, Samantha.
Right, but I'm telling you, they change. It's not
they
one thing.
change.
Yeah, it changes.
I agree with you.
They change.
Mine is definitely quality time and touch. But it depends, because there's sometimes where I don't want to be touched. I mean, I say touch, not inappropriately, but like a hug or anything like that. I don't know why I went there. But like that, like, you know, like it just depends on the mood that I'm in. So I think that they can change. But my main one is 100% quality time.
I don't have a main one. It just depends. So right now, it's probably like acts of service is probably my number one right now, / like a quality time. But it honestly, I know I sound insane. It really just depends on what I need in that season of my life. And then they're different.
Okay.
So shout out to Devin for being able to be flexible.
Because Lord Devin?
It's a journey.
Okay. All right. If you were a celebrity and you had to have a rider request, you know what a rider request is, right? I'm just making sure.
I came from LA.
Fair point. What would be on it? What would be on your rider?
Good vibes, music.
Okay, I'm done. Don't even start.
Some sort of snack. For
What
sure.
would the snack be? That's what I'm getting
It'd probably
at.
be some type of like Mexican food. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know. But that and like water and good vibes. Like literally, it would have to be like music and
Mint
some type
chip,
of spot.
something.
Ooh, mint chip ice cream would be a great writer. But that
Honestly, this is why I probably should stop recording people that I know, because how did you forget that?
well, because why would I want ice cream as a part of a writer? That seems
It doesn't
very
have to be
unhealthy.
ice cream. It could be, I don't know, Samantha. Anyway, so what song is currently on repeat for you? If you say Miss Rachel.
I don't listen to anything but
The
my kids
music?
shows.
Ari's not even 2 yet, so that's understandable. You're in that like mode where it's like.
I will say that I've been playing. I just got one of those like Alexa devices, and so the last couple of days I'm just like, Alexa, play some music, and there's this jazz song that comes on all the time by like, I don't even know the guy's name. I think it's like Tredor. That looks right in my brain, but I don't know.
Okay.
He does this thing. It's like this really nice jazz vibe, and then it's like.
Okay, just tell me your husband is a studio engineer without telling me your husband's a studio engineer. Okay, and your cut match team?
Hello. This should not be a question because blue and blue should never go together.
Ever
it is
in life.
Somerset all the way.
Every day.
West
all
is
day.
The best.
Every opportunity.
Absolutely.
Possible.
Like if you have to get a passport to cross the bridge. Why else do people go over there?
I get it. For all of my listeners who are not in Bermuda, so Cut Match is an annual holiday here in Bermuda, and you have no choice but to choose between two teams, Somerset and St. George's. There is big fact. Somerset is the best team. Though. We've won tons of times.
Yeah.
But also, you cannot be neutral. You have to pick a team.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, and then lastly, what is your favorite thing to do on a Sunday? Other than come and be on my podcast?
You know, I feel like, can we just retape this in another couple of months when I've had a chance to like
settle,
practice what I preach and
okay,
focus on self-care?
Big picture, what ideally would you like to do on a Sunday?
I would like to sleep in.
Well, you can't do that,
past
Samantha.
6:30 in the morning on any day. That'd be amazing.
You have a 1.5-year-old.
I would like to like I said, sleep in. That would be ideal, best day ever, and then do something for me. You know, like be able to like go for a walk or exercise or have a nice platter of fruits show up, you know, just something for me. I don't have a favorite thing to do on Sunday. I'm usually working and
it's a fair
with
point.
my child. So
yeah, we gotta get
this
going.
is really bad. Right. No, I actually feel really embarrassed because I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I don't do anything right.
It's not right. It's what works best for you. That's all that really matters. And if that's what works for you. Though? I mean, I think you having Ari in your life, which is her daughter. How old is Ari now?
17 months officially.
You know, I hate when people say 17, 20 months. Like, your kid is 1.
That's how you know
and
that
then
you're
it
a parent.
goes to, like, Ari's 1. And she goes to in August.
17 months.
17 months. Like, in what world? Anyway, whatever.
When she hits 2, I'll stop with the months.
I doubt it. So I think Ari has grounded you more, though, in terms of like taking more time, being intentional about your time and spending it with her. I think being a mom is really important to you, obviously. And I think she has changed that tremendously for you. So I think she came in a really good time. I think it's also why you're back home, one of the major reasons. So I love Aris, my girl. But yeah, so I think it's okay to be in that stage. I don't think there's anything wrong with not having a routine, because if you didn't have Ari, you would 100% be working.
Yeah. 115% of the time would be the minimum.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump in. Because we could keep going down that road for a while. Okay, if you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Oh, another tough question.
That's the point.
Rude. I would tell myself to slow down and release myself from the pressure.
What pressure?
Everything. I put a lot of pressure on myself when I was younger. I'm an achiever.
Big time.
Type A, for sure, through and through. But I feel like at 18, there were a lot of things that I thought about the world. You know, it's like, oh, I have this rigid structure. I'm going to like finish school by this time and get married by this time and have my degree by this time and have kids by this time. And, you know, body image wise, I thought I was in a very different place. And now
Big
that I'm
facts.
in a huge different place, I'm like, whoa.
Oof, girl, if you were 18,
you were skinny. I would say that.
Appreciate that body.
18-year-old self, you look good.
Appreciate
right?
that body.
That's what I would go back. But I would definitely say, just like, give yourself the grace. I adopted this saying years ago, and it just started coming back around for me. And I started telling people, it's just like, give yourself the grace to be human.
That's my word for the year, grace.
Like, you don't always have to do things at a certain time. You can be flexible. Things will still happen. Even if they don't happen the way that you want them to, and along that same path, it will always work out.
I love that. And I can totally attest to that. I think you wanted to be a doctor when we were 18.
Yes.
You wanted to be like, not obviously you are a doctor now, but like a medical doctor at the time.
I think 18 was anesthesiologist.
Yes, that was definitely it. So how did that change? How did you go from being an wanting to be an anesthesiologist to going into psychology to, you know, what that looked like? Like what was kind of the transition period for you during that time?
Do you want honest response or like politically correct response?
No, I want the honest response. I know the honest response, Samantha. We were roommates at the time.
I'm just saying, I'm just not sure which direction we want to go for our listeners here. Okay, honest response. This will be the short version of story of this, because this was a journey over several years of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. If I'm being honest, I wanted to do anesthesiology because of the money.
Absolutely.
And I saw dollar signs and I was like, oh, I want to be able to like provide financial freedom for my family. And this is what I want to do. And I had an interesting experience in college. I did start, you know, everybody does, you know, pre-med and bio and everything else. Like, I realized very quickly that not only did I have a lot of issues with the department chair, but I hated
that honest. Okay, cool.
biology. Oh, I wasn't going to go into detail. I'll just gloss over that.
Yeah.
I hated it. And what I did love was neuro. Anything about the brain was what I was interested in. And so I really just started taking a lot of time to kind of reflect and truly figure out what it was that I wanted and how I would give back. I don't remember if it was my mom or my dad or both, but I would always get asked, like, in some roundabout way, not exact words, but like, what is your contribution on the world going to be? And I didn't want it to be to make a lot of money, but still be a good doctor. You know, like that just didn't seem right to me. And if I'm also honest as well, I spent a lot of time in the hospital system and in the medical field through like volunteering or whatever it was, through like KEMH when I was in high school and everything else. And it was just, there were some excellent doctors. There were some excellent medical personnel that were available. And then there were some who you can tell were just there for the money. And it was really sad because I saw that it was not a true quality of healthcare. And I just felt like we deserve better as a people, you know, like our community deserves to have people who are genuinely in this because they're passionate and not just because they're collecting a paycheck and they're miserable.
Got it.
So things started to change for me. And I eventually found this love child between psychology, or like the behavior and the study of like those relationships and everything else, which I really enjoyed, and neuro, which I was passionate about and I loved. Through neuropsychology. And I was just like, you know what, like I'm going to do something that I love to do, that I know can give back to my community, that I can, even if I'm tired and complaining all day because I have no time for myself, at the end of the day, I still feel like, you know what, I helped that family. And that's kind of what shifted that.
That's really good. So walk me through, in a very Reader's Digest version, what is a neuropsychologist, and then specifically I wouldn't say your kind of niche of it, but like the pediatric side of it. Like, because one, you love kids as well. Yeah. So that's kind of think where that kind of propelled that. So explain to me like what that is. What does a pediatric neuropsychologist do? And in terms of like day-to-day stuff, how does that kind of go around? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean being a pediatric neuropsychologist?
Yeah. it's okay. Reader's Digest. So I talk a lot. I apologize. I'm trying to wrap this up. A neuropsychologist is basically, I specialize in brain and behavior relationships, right? And so what I do, contrary to kind of a generalist, is I understand the intricate parts of neurology. We have to study a lot of like behavioral neurology and a lot of neurology in general to know the different brain regions and to know what they do and their functions and everything else. And then I can apply that to how that's going to impact behavior. So on a broad scale, because since I've been back in Bermuda, I have been kind of forced to practice lifespan. Even though I do specialize in pediatrics, but as a lifespan neuropsychologist, it can look like anything. So it can be understanding the effects of, a traumatic brain injury. So a bike accident, car accident, sports concussions, which I also specialized in for a while, seizures, or any type of like organic brain condition, if you will, because I'm trying to like break it down. And then how living with the impacts of these things is going to then affect our daily lives. So how it's going to affect school, how it's going to affect work, how it's going to affect the way that we think and function and interact with others. And then subsequently sort of how to improve those things, because there is a cognitive rehabilitation side of that.
Right.
Making it specific to children, which is my specialty. It can still be those same things. A lot of it is a medical-based referral. But aside from the medical-based referrals, which again could be the same thing, it could be like a brain injury, it could be, this kid has had a tumor or something else, then we can take it from there to how is this going to impact them, or looking at it from an academic lens.
Got it.
Right? So speaking specific to academics, it's kind of like, what is happening in the school, if there are any weaknesses that they're noticing, or maybe a kid is behind learning wise, and then not just saying you're behind or you need to catch up, but looking at it from a neurological standpoint. What does this indicate as the weakness? What area of the brain is showing in this and is implicated? And then how can we put certain strategies into place that are going to improve and increase your functioning?
Now that you're finally, here, school is done, well, kind of done, because you're doing boards and stuff now. Yeah. But like Samantha's literally been in school since we were 5.
I mean, that's technically not school anymore.
I'm saying. Like, it's been a really long process.
4. I started early.
Right? She's so smart. And
no,
so
that's not what I was
that was it. I'm joking. And so now that you're here, you're, practicing, you're doing all of this, like here in Bermuda currently, like, how does that feel for you being the first? Like, you've literally accomplished a dream of yours, a goal, like really tangible, being back on island and being the first. Like, how does that feel for you?
I have 2 different answers to that question.
That's fine.
On one side, it's incredibly surreal. And it's for lack of a better word, it's a burden. And I don't necessarily mean burden in a negative connotation, but there's a lot that rides on it. It's very heavy for me. I feel the weight of it, because this is not just a random profession for me. There are many reasons why I wanted to come home, and needing this specialty on the island while still understanding that most people have no idea what it is that I do and why it's even important.
I mean, I know very, very high level what you do. And
you still don't know what I do,
and
though.
Still don't know. If someone were to ask me, like, assessments, she can help your kids, from a pediatric standpoint. I think I can kind of get them around to understanding that they need to come and see you. Yeah. Is that a referral fee? I'm joking. Go ahead.
Let me ignore that question. That's not ethical, by the way.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, ethically, we can't do that.
Okay.
However, it's on that wavelength or on that lens, it's a lot. It's very heavy for me, and there's a lot riding on it because I want to be impactful. I want to help. I want to help to improve access to healthcare for a specialty that historically we've always sent people away for. It's something that I feel very passionate about. And then it hasn't hit me. I don't consider myself to be like spectacular or important in any way. I don't see myself as, I don't really reflect on that often to be like, oh, I'm the first and the only person here. Mm-hmm. But if I do start thinking about it because somebody brings it to my attention, it kind of takes my breath away, because I sit there and I'm not often lost for words, but in those moments I kind of sit and I'm just like, okay, so how do I carry this alone and be 150% effective with everyone?
Yeah. And what have you kind of come to that conclusion? How have you answered that, I should say?
I haven't. I try to see every single case that I have as the only case that I have. Because I feel all the families deserve to have the best quality of a service and of a healthcare that I can provide. And I think, at least from the feedback that I've gotten from a lot of families, whether it be adults who are being assessed or parents of kids who are being assessed, people are usually really appreciative of that, because it's not often that, at least this is from what people have shared, it's not often that people feel like, wow, like somebody really took the time to give me 110. And I just try to go out of my way to make sure that I'm as helpful as I can be with everyone. So we'll see. I just try to take it one case at a time.
I mean, I think you have to give yourself a lot more credit than that. And I know it's difficult sometimes owning, your achievements just across the board for women, period, right? But I think not you specifically, but you specifically, you have to own that. And, you're helping people in a way that a lot of people have not had access to. Outside of in Bermuda, they would have to leave to do that. And also, I think the quality of service that you provide is also, the service that you provide, period, is also can be financially daunting to some people as well. And the fact that you're willing to work with people to make that happen and make it available to people on Island through different services is also key. Like the amount of work that you've put into it, getting your name out there, letting people know that you're on Island, there's still a lot more to do. But you have to sit in that for a moment and genuinely appreciate it. Like, I remember sitting in our in Stone Crossing, and you
15,
were like
16.
16. I forgot that apartment and the number. And you sitting there and saying, Shay, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna go back to Bermuda. I want to be the first, neuropsychologist. At the time, was pediatric neuropsychologist in Bermuda. And me thinking to myself, she's gonna be in school for the next 80 years, and you did it. You know what I mean? And I think you have to appreciate that, Sammy. You have to look in that and appreciate the fact that you set your mind to something and you did it, which is a very good quality of yours. You're very much, you have a goal, you achieve it, but you don't sit in it and appreciate it.
I don't. I don't want to get emotional, but thank you.
We got to stop. This little couch here, just emotions just start running on that.
I'm going to try to gloss over that. So thank you.
I think it's really important that you do that, for sure.
Yeah.
So what's something everybody in your industry should start doing that they don't currently do? Could be something fun, loving, whatever. It doesn't have to be anything.
What do you mean my industry?
Like in psychology, neuropsychology. Like, what's something people should start doing that you think we don't currently do?
I don't know.
What about stop doing?
I have an answer for that. As Deshay has mentioned, I've been in school and in training for tons and tons and tons of years. It's been a lifetime. But one of the things that I learned while training actually at CHLA through a very difficult supervisor, to be honest. But looking back, I appreciate that supervisor for being difficult. The general message that year was to see your patients or clients as more than just the data. And I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the data. So a lot of times people are like, well, what is it that you do exactly? Like, are you doing therapy? I can, because I'm also a psychologist. I don't. As you mentioned, I'm doing assessments. And that looks like a number of different things. We're doing like testing and activities and this and that. I might have you like answering questions or recreating blocks, or I have activities on the iPad or whatever it is that I have you doing. But it's very easy to get so caught up in the data once you get all of it and just kind of sit there and you're like, oh, like this number's off or this number is too high, or not necessarily too high. High is a great thing. But, oh, like these numbers are low, so this means this, and just trying to fit people into these diagnostic categories. And I have been trained to see people as more than that. It's more than just the numbers. It's more of a story. It's who that individual is. It's all of the data from like their developmental history, their current presentation, whether it's a kid in school and what that looks like, or an adult that's struggling to keep up at work or whatever it is, and like what their day-to-day experiences are that make them who they are. And sometimes you can have two different people who have the same data, but completely different diagnoses, completely different stories. And so I guess that's one of what we should stop doing. You know, I am aware that sometimes people overdiagnose. I've been in those clinics. And I'm trying to find my middle ground. Like, at what point is it even useful or important to have a million diagnoses more than just being able to speak to what the profile is? And then also understanding that we all have strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, that's normal. That's inherent to who we are as humans. And so sometimes just because we see a strength or a weakness doesn't automatically mean it's a diagnosis. Sometimes it's just data. It's a typical disbursement, if I want to speak statistically.
Oh, so, okay. So in your profession, or I guess in your industry, when we think of psychology, specific neuropsychology, what is the kind of gender makeup? Like, are there more females? Are there more males? Like, what does that look like from your perspective, I should say?
In school, I was always told that neuropsychology was a male-dominated field, that there are very few females that are involved. However, I will also say that I looked this up recently, and it looks like as of, I want to say the data was like 2020, or maybe it was 2021, maybe even this year, in the last couple of years. Although I don't know if this is a trusted source, just so that you know, because it came from one of those like the career websites where you can just go on, like Glassdoor type of thing, and you can find out. It looks like, according to those websites, that there are more females now than males. So I don't know, but I will speak to what I was told. I was told that this was a male-dominated industry. I have seen that it's a male-dominated industry. Most of my supervisors and even the neuropsychologists who I've been around are usually males. Okay. They're usually Caucasian males. And the percentages that I was given was Black people in general only comprise about 3% or less of neuropsychologists. And then when you add in like Black female minority from an island, it's even lower. So gotcha. It was always told to me by like my Caucasian teachers that like you're less than 2%
of the population of neuropsychologists. So walk me through
psychology in general.
In psychology in general.
But then for sure neuropsychology.
Got you. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought just specific to that. So then walk me through how you get to become a neuropsychologist. So regular school. So let's start post Oakwood. Okay. So you did an undergrad in what?
I did an undergrad in counseling psychology, actually, and a bunch of other things, but that was the main thing. Okay, so what's required to be a neuropsychologist? Because I did a lot more than what was like typically required, I guess.
Which is very you.
It is. So you not only have to have your undergrad, but you also have to get a doctorate in clinical psychology. So depending on the institution where you are, it's either a PsyD, which is a doctorate of psychology in whatever, or a PhD, which would be a doctor of research in psychology. So you would have to do that. Depending on the school, you're looking at like 5-6 years. The UK is a little bit less, but usually it's about 5 or 6 years for your doctorate. While you're in school, you're doing a number of different internship years. You have to meet certain requirements for the number of experience hours and everything that you have to have, with the last year being a full year-long rotation of an internship, where for an entire year, you're essentially working but under supervision. And that's still a part of your doctorate. Once you finish your doctorate, and of course there's like dissertations and everything involved in there. Once you've completed your doctorate, on the other side of that, there's a requirement for an additional 2-year fellowship where you're working under a licensed neuropsychologist, preferably a board certified neuropsychologist, where you're meeting a number of different criteria. So there's these things called the Houston guidelines, which are actually changing to a different city, not Houston anymore, because they're about to redo them. But the Houston guidelines specify the types of training that you have to have. There's like didactic series that you have to go through. So there's a number of different trainings, and like, as I mentioned before, which you also have to have this in your doctorate, but in like behavioral neurology and clinical neuropsychology and all of these other domains that you have to meet, in addition to like certain practice standards and a number of different hours and things. So you have to do that for a full 2 years.
Right. So it's not like just a rotation of a few months in a neuro department.
No, that does not qualify.
That doesn't qualify you.
No,
Gotcha.
it means that you have neuropsychology experience perhaps, but that does not, you do not meet the requirements for a neuropsychologist at that level.
Got you. Which is obviously important because you can't do assessments, you can't make proper diagnoses, all those types of things without being a trained neuropsychologist.
Yeah, it depends. Depending on the setting and depending on the type of assessments, some psychologists, if you've had the training, can do assessment, but it's not at the same level, and it's not necessarily coming from the perspective of brain and behavior. So there's been a huge push in all of like the international neuropsychology organizations that have moved towards neuropsychology being considered a medical evaluation, not psychological, because we're not just assessing for mood or for basic psychological function, but more above and beyond that to more, like I said, like the neurological side.
Got you. So let's like kind of take a quick turn quickly. So would you say, what would you say, knowing everything that you know, being as qualified as you are, all of those things, what would you say is something that people misunderstand about you?
There's a lot of misunderstandings. One of them is that I'm just a general psychologist and that I'm funny enough here, especially I've gotten the whole like, oh, well, how are you any different than the other psychologists who are doing testing? That's a common misconception, that I'm just a random psychologist who's returned to the island that decided to charge thousands of dollars for my evaluation. And that's definitely not the case. There's a very big distinction. Another misconception is that, for example, if I do more child neuropsychology, or if I'm doing academic-based referrals, that I'm giving the same information or essentially doing the same assessment that a school psychologist would do, which is another misconception. I guess very briefly to speak to both of those, the main differences, because there's a lot, but I know we don't have that much time. With school psychologists who are excellent and amazing, I'm not speaking to undermine any other colleague or professional on the island. School psychologists are usually master's level clinicians and they're unable to diagnose, but what they can do is just speak to a difference. So they can say your child is behind in reading. Some of them will say this looks like a profile similar to what we see in dyslexia or something like that. But that's where it caps. Gotcha. I like using the analogy of kind of crops. Like if you think about a farmer, so like a school psychologist or a generalist can kind of look at the farm or look at the crops and say like, wow, this patch is dying. Perhaps we should do something about that. A neuropsychologist, because of the additional brain and behavior relationships that we know and understand, can get underneath the soil, analyze the soil. We're testing everything to say, not only is this area dying or weak or withered or whatever, but here's why.
Got you. I love how you immediately went into the misunderstandings about work when I was talking about just you.
Oh, whoops. Just kidding. You see, no, balance, need for self-care. Your 2023.
Mind is always on work. It's hilarious. Yeah. Mind you, I never thought of it that way, but yes. I mean, misconceptions about you, Samantha, not Dr. Samantha.
I don't know. Misconceptions about me?
If you think, or misunderstanding, like what
maybe that I'm mean.
Why would you say people think you're mean?
People think I have an RBF. I get comments about that all the time. You don't know
Same.
how many people come up to me and have been like, "Oh my gosh, you're like the nicest person I know, and
I didn't think
you're
that
so
in the
sweet and you're so
beginning."
helpful, but I never wanted to talk to you because you just looked like you were mean, or you looked like I was afraid to talk to you."
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize. I don't mean to come across that way.
Yeah.
My face is not me.
Mm.
It just happens. If anything, it's like
Because you're in thought.
a defense mechanism in the wild.
Okay, we're done. I'm done.
Yes, usually I'm in deep thought, and half of my facial expressions that people interpret as being rude, I'm really just confused. Like, here's one of my confused faces. Like,
really? I wouldn't say that.
Like,
I think for you're not really paying attention. I know for me, sometimes when I'm just walking, I'm in like deep thought.
Yes.
And my my natural face isn't like smile. It's just like I'm just walking. Yeah. Yeah. You're going to have to get used to that in Bermuda, though, because people are like, you didn't even see me when I spoke to you.
I know. I try to speak, though. Mm-hmm. I go out of my way. I'm not like, oh, hey, girl.
Stop with your Bermudian accent. Your Bermudian accent is the absolute
You
worst
are the
thing
most disrespectful
I've ever heard
person
before
I
in my
know.
life, and you need to stop.
So I just want to say, guys, for everybody listening, we should not be judging people based on accents. Because this is my authentic voice.
It is not.
Okay?
It is not. It is not.
Okay? Just because it doesn't sound like you want it to sound, she's so disrespectful.
Samantha, you've been out of Bermuda for a really long time. You don't have a Bermudian accent anymore. That's okay.
That's fine. But when it does come on, this is what it is. And it's true and passionate to me. It's real to me.
Okay. All right. So let's just get back on course here.
It's
so
the disrespect for me.
What would you say is your zone of genius?
What?
Your zone of genius. Like, what's the time of day where you are at your most optimal?
I don't know.
You're a morning person.
Give me a chance to respond. My brain is telling me first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure, though.
I think so.
I think it depends on when Ari sleeps. That's my accurate answer for this stage of my 2023.
Since
my
Aria's
zone of
been
genius
born.
depends on how long my child decides to stay awake. If she wakes up at 6:30 in the morning, but she didn't go to sleep until like 10 or 11 or midnight because she was trying to play games with me, then my zone of genius is not. When I wake up, it's probably after I've had some coffee, and I'm a new coffee drinker, guys.
Jesus. Very new.
It depends. Like sometimes honestly, I have to like get in the zone. And I have like very specific things that have to happen for me to get in the zone. But if I get there,
what do you have to do to get you in the zone?
There's like a certain playlist that I have to listen to. There's a certain environment that I have to have. Like it's very serious.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's called Deep Focus on Spotify.
Deep Focus?
Mm-hmm.
And it just helps. I just listen to classical music. If I need to focus, classical music, AirPods, focus.
No, because sometimes like I'm such a music person. And because do not play me, Deshay. Do not make me say your middle name on this podcast.
I didn't even have a face.
I'm going to say what I'm going to say, but do not play me. Because I'm such a music person and I used to play the violin and
Samantha, hurry up.
And my violin was very serious for me, and my involvement in the orchestra, I can't just listen to classical music regularly because I'm very, very in tuned and it's distracting sometimes. You see, this is why I said do not play me. Where's the cameras? Because
Samantha, when did you stop playing the violin? What age?
Why does that matter?
What age? I genuinely, you know what?
I stopped playing the violin in high school.
Okay.
I did.
Okay, so deep. So what is it called? Deep what?
Deep Focus on Spotify.
Because we're gonna reel this back in because we're not about to lie to my listeners.
I'm not lying. You don't know everything.
I don't know everything.
It's the disrespect. I'm trying to be authentic here.
Okay, so Deep Focus on Spotify. What else sets the mood for you to be in your zone?
It depends on my environment. So if I'm in a place where I can like have it just loud, but I can kind of be shut into an office or a room, I usually have to have the lights off, but like a lamp so that it's like glowing on my desk. It kind of like helps with the focus. It can like narrow me in kind of. And then there's a certain volume that the music has to be in because if it's too loud, it's going to take me out. But if it's too quiet, I can't necessarily get there. I would love to have like socks on, but like not have shoes on. I have to like just be super comfortable.
Really?
It's like a whole thing.
Okay.
This is sounding very like OCD-ish.
Well, you are.
I'm a little OCPD, which is like the personality version of that.
It's
but
just psychology for me. Okay.
just a tad.
Just a little. So who has been your greatest inspiration in life? Who would that be?
I'm kidding. You see her face?
I genuinely don't know the answer. I don't know the answer.
Probably my mom.
Okay. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
Why mom? Why Aunt Michelle?
I don't know. She's just a great person. She's been an amazing influence for a number of different reasons. Again, I don't want to be emotional on this podcast, so it's not going to happen.
Like the last 3 episodes, someone has cried.
I'm not going to do it. So watch this.
We're going to have to switch seats the next time. Maybe.
Here we go. I'm good. So my mom has actually been in like a field adjacent, and it's actually been really great because I've had the opportunity and the privilege rather to kind of do this with her. Like as I'm going through school, sometimes she's been like living vicariously through me because at some point, I'm sure she would have loved to like get her doctorate and everything else, but it just didn't happen. And so she specialized in children. She did like early childhood education. She was at CDP for a long time, doing a lot of like the developmental assessments and everything else. And so it's been really cool to walk through this and to specialize the way that I have with her influence. And also we can have these really great conversations back and forth with her knowledge of like child development and the milestones that kids should be hitting, and kind of tying that in with what I know about like the neurological side and like the brain progression and relationships. It's been great. So I would definitely say she's been my biggest influence. And I just want to, I just want to be the best I can, not only as kind of like a thank you and a reach back to both of my parents for doing the best that they could with what they had. But obviously looking forward, like I just want to lay the carpet out for Aria. It's my daughter, guys. I'm really intentional about trying to build like generational wealth and being the best version of myself that I can be, so that she kind of has something to look to.
I love that. Yeah. And then because we're wrapping up here, so a few things. The next thing definitely would be, what advice would you give to a young woman who is looking into the field of neuropsychology? Like, what would you tell her that wasn't told to you, or to kind of help her along this journey?
It is a very difficult process. The medical field in general, I think those who are familiar with it and those who have gone through any specialty related to medicine, the unfortunate side is that there's a lot of hazing that happens in the medical field. I don't know why. It's just a thing. Some people are like, what do you mean? Like, how is it hazing? Sometimes it's like, it's a part of a medical model where it's kind of like the training comes from a perspective not to kind of make you feel warm and fuzzy and like, oh, let's help you and teach you and help you to grow because I'm invested in you. It's more like, you're an idiot, and if you don't figure this out fast, you're going to fail because then you're not worth it. And this probably isn't for you. And so it kind of puts you in an environment, especially if you're trained in a hospital or hospitals like I was, you're in an environment where it's very cutthroat. You have to do the absolute utmost. Like I was working 60 hours a week for most of my training, and that was a bare minimum. Like in terms of the expectation, it wasn't because I was going above and beyond, like that was what I was expected to do. But like legally they can't say that. It's just part of the culture. So it's very cutthroat and it's very harsh, and it can be very isolative, especially when as a female and as a female of color, you're having to prove yourself on top of that. There are a lot of walls that had to be pushed through and punched through, and you just kind of have to absorb the blows, and it's rough. But if it's something that you're passionate about, on the other side, it can be worth it. And then you can change that culture.
I love that. And then finally, what do you want to be remembered for? When you're no longer on this planet, which is not anytime soon, and someone says, Dr. Samantha O'Bannon, what is something you want them to say about you?
That's a really deep question. The first thing that comes to mind is for being compassionate and compassionate, understanding, and impactful. I think I would want for people to know that this was really important to me and for me. Trying to educate our community on brain and behavior relationships, the impact of neurological traumas, the bike accidents that happen and what that actually means, the sports concussions that we have and what that actually means. Because I can't even begin to talk about the amount of times that I've heard just wild stories that literally break my heart, where people are like, yeah, like I got in a bike accident and they found me in the bushes a couple days later and I just went home to sleep it off. Like, mortifying. I want people to know that I was really passionate about this, and that it was my biggest desire to help improve the quality, not just of healthcare services and the availability of services, but also like people's lives, to know that I genuinely cared about each person and their outcomes. And that I saw their family members, you know, like I've had cases where it's unfortunately, you know, like a dementia evaluation where people are genuinely concerned for their parent and their loved one, and having somebody that truly can sit with that and in that space with them. You know, like my papa had Alzheimer's and died, and that was really difficult. But to have somebody sit in there and be like, listen, I understand how difficult this is. I know the worries, I know the fears, and let me get you the answers and then help me point you in the right direction. That's what I would want.
I love that. I love all of that. I don't know what I was expecting you to say, but I love that even more than what I thought you were going to say. But anyway, no, in a good way, Samantha, in a very, 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 very good way. Like I love I think that's all very true. I think I'm surprised in a good way because, like I said in the beginning, you don't always sit in your successes, right? And I think wanting that's what you wanted to be remembered for is a very positive step forward. That's all I mean.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. How can my listeners get in contact with you? Give me your socials. How can that work? If anyone has any questions or things like that, or if they just want to, you know, follow Dr. Sam I Am, see some cute pictures of Aria, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, that's the first answer. I can be found at Dr. Sam I Am, DOCTOR.
Yes.
I actually spelled that wrong once and it was very embarrassing. So, Dr. Sam I Am spelled out on Instagram. There's also a Dr. Sam Facebook page, but honestly, I don't really do anything with that. So probably don't go there. I have a drsamIam.com website that answers a lot of questions, like what is neuropsychology, what are the common types of evaluations, because there are a lot of different evaluations. And with that, it has like my email links and the different offices that I'm affiliated with, both here and in California or the United States, because it's more than just California, including Samantha at drsamIam.com as an email address. So it's pretty LinkedIn.
Yeah, everything you can kind of find you in one
and
place.
If you forget Dr. Sam I Am, kind of like green eggs and ham, you know, like take it back to childhood.
Yeah, that's what my dad calls you still to this day.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy. All right, well, thank you, Dr. Samantha O'Bannon, for joining me today. Guys, I want you to remember if you want to get in contact with Dr. Samantha, it's still very weird to say that,
Samantha.
but in a good way. Dr. Samantha, make sure you follow her on Instagram, like she said, at Dr. Sam I Am, or you can read on her website. You can go to Dr. Sam I Am, doctor.com. Once again, guys, if you want to, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then make sure you go to hustleherpodcast.com to sign up to get all of our episodes early, show notes, and then when some of our sponsors do giveaways, we do all of those there with all of our sponsors, for all the people who have signed up ahead of time. So if you want to go ahead and do that, and don't forget to subscribe and reach out to us or me if you have any questions. Thank you again for listening to Hustle Her Podcast.